G'day everyone, welcome to the how-to, Titanfall 2 Part 3, doesn't really rhyme, EVA foam car tutorial. My name is Andrew DFT, and let's finish this gun off. Now of course this is the last section, so we're on the home run to getting all the detail and all these additional features in to help finish off the rifle. Now of course we're going to tackle the rails, we're going to do some more of this detail, and we're going to put a barrel in and really finish this off so that way you can have the design and then you can take it, paint it up, and have something cool and badass. So I won't waste any more of your time. You've spent a lot of it watching these tutorials and I thank you for that, but we'll finish it off. Let's jump in. Okay, so when we left off we had the gun looking like this. Now it's almost done. Like I mentioned, we just have to add a few more details. So we'll start off with the actual safety switch. All we need to do is cut it out of the negative space of the template, transfer it onto the foam, making sure you flip it to get a left and a right, and then what we'll do is we'll add a depth line just to thin this foam out. Right now it's a bit too thick. We don't really need it to be that large, so we'll cut that foam in half and then simply glue it into position. It can sit right there in the middle, so you don't really need to lay out a template for it. You can just slot it right into place. Now we'll start to work on the weird section that actually goes between the butt and holster section. I have no idea what you call this piece, but it is an annoying little tiny piece of design that does have to go in, so we will add it. All we need to do, of course, is grab the template, transfer it onto foam, flip it once so you have two of them, and then we'll cut them out of the foam and then simply glue them together. You want to cut them as cleanly as possible so that they do align perfectly because they have these weird angles, but if they don't, we can definitely clean them up later when we try seal those seams. Then all we need to do is grab the template once it's all glued in there and draw in this additional line. This will help break up the design when we score it in the end. Now, like I mentioned, we need to do the rails. Now this is a relatively difficult process, so we'll go through it and I'll explain it as best as I can. What we're going to do is we're going to grab the rail template, we're going to cut it in half. We're then going to measure the gap between the current top of the gun we have. Right now for me it's about 1 inch thick. So what we'll do is we'll cut a new slab of foam 1 inch wide and the length of that template. You can then cut it free from the foam and then we'll simply glue it right on top. It should sit there flush because everything is nice and straight, and it should add to the thickness and allow the gun to elevate up a bit. That inch thickness, of course, of the foam should sit in there nicely, so it should look relatively seamless. Then all we need to do is add these vertical lines that you can see here. This will help just break out the design and allow that charging mechanism area to have a bit more detail. Now hopefully you still have those templates, because what we're going to do is we're going to take this section and we're going to cut it into stages, so that way we can apply some more detail. So we'll start with this section and we'll actually cut out the design, transfer it onto the foam, being sure to flip the template so we have two. We'll then add a depth line into the foam about 1/4 of the way through. We don't need it to be entirely thick, we want this to be a relatively thin piece that we'll actually apply to add some bit more of a layer effect going on. Once we've got it cut free, we can then break apart the template on the individual piece and transfer all these individual lines across. These of course will be added later on when we score it, so they'll add some more definition to this section and give it a bit more detail. Once we've added in all of those lines, what we can then do is of course use the other stages of the template to help line out where everything's going to go. If we glued it in right now, it might be out of place, so we want to make sure it fits in exactly where it should be. To do that, what we'll do is we'll grab this section and we'll start to apply it on just like we have done with the previous. Adding in this bevel and this depth line will allow us to curve off this section, which you can simply do by grabbing a craft blade and cutting straight through it. Nothing too difficult. Once that bevel edge is all complete, you simply just need to grab that extra piece we did, the 1/4 of the thickness of the foam piece, and glue that right into position. It should sit relatively flat and flush in there, so you shouldn't have any problems doing that. And then to finish off this piece, we'll add in two little lines that will go across the section. These will of course score and heat out to add a bit more detail. You can simply just add them in there, being sure to carry them across horizontally to match up with the other side. Now we're going to continue with the fun part, the extra rails. So what you'll do is grab the template and we're of course going to make a new slab of foam. This one's going to be 2 inches thick. Of course you can see here the contrast between the original piece, which is of course 1 inch, and this one will be 2 inches thick. The reason why we're adding the extra thickness is it's going to allow us to have this nice overhang feature like you can see here. Of course we don't want it to have that textured side and just weird 90-degree angles all over the place, so what we're going to do is add a depth line about halfway through the foam and we're actually going to bevel off the edge. But before we actually go ahead and do anything on that, you're going to make a second piece, an exact same thickness and exact same size piece, because we're going to use those for the additional extra details on the rail. But what we'll do now is we'll grab the slab that has the beveled edge sides, and we'll go ahead and start beveling them off with a nice sharp craft blade. Being sure you do change that blade out if you haven't, because this will allow us to have those nice smooth edges that of course you can see here and look perfect. Anything less and they'll definitely show up on the final design, which you of course really don't want to have any imperfections when trying to present this as a nice clean piece. Now what you're going to do with the second slab, the duplicate that we made, is what we're going to do is we're going to add these lines you can see here. These are done maybe about 0.4 of an inch into the foam, and these are going to be nice little bevel lines. We can then add a depth line about halfway through that foam, and then we'll just go ahead and bevel those edges. You might need to change your blade out again because it would have got relatively dull from the previous beveling we did on that other piece. But of course, once you've gone through and you've beveled both those edges, and it should be looking relatively nice and clean, we're then going to add another horizontal line, which is about another 0.3 inches in. What this is going to do is allow us to break all these individual slabs up. So these are about 1 centimeter thick per spacing. These are going to be the individual rails. We then need to cut them all out, like so, and then painstakingly and very mundanely glue them into position. You can use hot glue or any adhesive of your choice, but you're going to have to go through, take your time. This took me about 20 minutes, I think, to actually put all these pieces in and make sure that they are well spaced. You can actually rule them out if you wish. I did them freehand. Some came off a bit wonky, but most of them went in perfectly, which is cool. But they should all sit in there and just continue it down the rail until it's complete. But that will add a really nice feature, and it really does look extremely nice. So the pain is worth it, believe me. Alright, so the difficult stages have all been completed. Now we get the fun part, scoring. So what you're going to do is you're going to grab the craft blade and you're going to go across and score all the lines we've drawn on. That's right, all the individual pen lines you can see marked on the rifle. What this is going to do, you're going to break the surface using the blade. You're not going to cut all the way through, you're just breaking the surface enough so that it is separated. Then run it over with a heat gun and heat up all those individual lines, and you'll see it start to break and separate. Not like in a bad way, but in a fantastic detailed version. What you can see here is that after that's all cooled, all these lines and all these pieces we added on have started to separate and built up a lovely piece of detail, which is a good thing. Now of course, all we need to do is add a few little pieces. So what we'll start off and quickly finish is the trigger. All we need to do is draw up a design that fits in relatively well, add a depth line about 3/4 of the way through the foam just so we can cut off that textured side. Of course, we want it to be even on both, and then simply glue it into position. As long as you've designed it and scaled it right, it should just sit in there perfectly fine. You can do any type of trigger design that you wish. Now what you're going to do is we're going to add a barrel. Now I personally use wooden poles, you can use a PVC pipe, whatever is easiest for you. Some can have barrel holes, some don't. If it's a display prop, it doesn't really matter. But what you're going to do is mark out the end, this perimeter, the circumference of it with a line, and then use a craft blade to cut about 1 inch of the way through, creating that negative gap. Then all you need to do is fill that gap with a lot of hot glue or art cement or whatever you prefer, put the barrel in, and leave it to dry. Once it's cured, it should be sitting there extremely well and not fall out. Just make sure that the barrel is sitting in there nice and straight. The last thing you want is to glue it in and have it wonky, because then you have to restart the process. But, can you believe it? That's it done. There are a few more stages that you do need to take, or you can take if you wish, but I recommend clicking the video thumbnail here. This will take you to another video which will give you a quick overview on how you can actually fill some of those seams that you can see on the spine of the gun, and underneath, of course, the just general foam separation points, which of course do look relatively ugly and you don't really want them there. So if you watch this video, you'll get a quick, very cheap and easy and effective way to cover those up, so that way your gun looks seamless. So that's it. All done and dusted. You should now have it looking like this, all finished and ready for you to go ahead, seal and paint. Now of course you can paint it up in any way you'd like. Remember, the game offers multiple customizations and skins, so you can do your own personal preference. Of course for this I just went with a very basic original default skin, because it's very Titanfall-y, orange and white of course. So this is just a very basic example of how you can paint it up to make the prop look like something quite nice. So thank you for following along with this tutorial. I know it was a rather long one, but we went from a basic EVA foam sheet to a finished rifle, which then of course you can paint up to look rather nice. I think that's a pretty cool transition. So if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like, share it with your friends, let them also have the opportunity to build their favorite guns that they enjoy. If you want to see more videos and more designs done in this tutorial style, let me know in the comments below. I'll see what I can do about bringing you some more content for the favorite weapons you guys like. Well, that's enough talking. The video's already been long enough and I've kept you guys around for quite some time. Thank you for watching. Catch you later.